I call Derek Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak in the committee stage on the Social Security Amendment Bill number 3. May I firstly say that we won't be supporting this bill, not because of the what's in the entire bill, sir, but because of one specific clause. We understand the intent of the bill insofar as what the government has, what the Minister has explained, is that it's the tightening up of loopholes. But what we're concerned with is the ramifications of tightening up those loopholes, what effects they have on the members of the public, certain members of the public. And at this stage, what we see from the government is that those ramifications haven't been taken into account. And the specific clause that I'm talking about, sir, is Part 1, Section 4, Subsection 1 and 2. And that's got to do with the accommodation supplement issues and student allowances for the students. And in the explanatory note of the bill, it tries to explain why or what the purpose of that clause is. And I quote, "The bill also amends the Social Security Act of 1964 to clarify the provisions that exclude students who are eligible for assistance under the Student Allowance Regulations 1998 from receiving the accommodation supplement. The amendment makes it clear that students are not eligible for the accommodation supplement if they could receive assistance under the Student Allowance Regulations but choose not to apply for it, or if they could receive this assistance but for their own income or the income of the parent, spouse and partner." So at the moment, sir, what's happening is, and what the loophole that the government is trying to fix, is that students get a certain amount when they get the student allowance, but if they chose not to get the student allowance, they would receive more if they went for the accommodation supplement. And so what the government is trying to do is close that loophole so that even if the student was not taking the student allowance but was eligible, they could not take the accommodation supplement. So to be able to put that into some sort of context, I'd like to refer to the departmental report and looking at the specific submissions. And the first thing that I would like to say, sir, is that there are only two written submissions for this bill. And that begs the question, looking at the submission period when those submissions were allowed, it was only approximately 2 weeks. So that seems like a very fast turnaround for submissions to be heard. And the two submissions were from the Dunedin Community Law Centre and the New Zealand Union of Students Association. And both of those submissions, sir, funnily enough, were on that clause itself, and they were against the changes. And their reasoning behind that was because of the ramifications down the track for the students and the concerns that they had for that. And that's the exact same position that New Zealand First is taking with this clause. With the submissions, sir, both from the departmental report, both the Centre and the NZUSA expressed concern about the adequacy of accommodation assistance provided to students through the student support system. That's the issue that they are facing, and the closing of this loophole has consequences. The Centre actually suggests that thought should be given as to why students seek to access accommodation supplement and whether or not the accommodation component of the student allowance meets the basic needs of the student. And what's interesting, sir, is that if I flick over the page, the MSD comment states that the level or adequacy of assistance provided within the student support system is outside the scope of this bill. And what it looks like from New Zealand, for New Zealand First perspective is that that is being used as an excuse to ignore that issue. So what we have here, sir, is in the House we've got the lawmakers and we've got this legislation, but outside, where we hear these submissions in the committee stage, we've got the people out there that are affected by this legislation and by the law that we change in here. And what's concerning for New Zealand First is that, Mr. Chair?
I call the Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr. Chair, I thank the members for the comments that they have made, particularly around the accommodation supplement and the changes that we're making on that.